Our guest has published 31 books and guided more than 40,000 people to become effective leaders over the past 41 years. Today, he's here to share insights into the most effective leadership styles. Please welcome Paul Thornton. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me on. I look forward to our discussion.
Well, I'm sure you've been busy writing those books and having many different experiences. What was one of your first traumatic experiences with a leader?
In high school, I was elected co-captain of my hockey team, and I was supposed to set a good example, enforce the team rules, motivate some of my teammates, etc. And I did a very bad job. I was more concerned with being liked by my teammates. So I did not do the things I should have done. So I was not a very good leader. I kind of knew that I wasn't doing what I should be doing. So that was kind of a motivation for me to find out more about what really does an effective leader do and what do I need to learn to advance and progress. So yeah, that was my bad one.
I remember a gentleman telling me once he was given the job as the captain of the cricket team. And he said, I don't want to be the captain. And they asked him, why not? He said, because we're going to lose the game and everybody's going to blame me. They said, no, you'll be fine. He said, well, where's the captain? He said, he doesn't want to lose the game, so he didn't show up today. And he went out there, he captained the team, and they lost, and then they crucified him. And he said, I never want to be a leader ever again. And then he took a job as a leader at about 31, and all those bad memories come flooding back in.
Well, everyone thinks being a leader is a great job and you're admired and loved and praised and all that. But actually, being a leader is not easy, and making the tough decisions and holding people accountable and all of those types of things, is challenging. And many people don't want to do that, as the story you told. It's a lot easier to be, liked and just to fit in and go with the flow. But holding your ground and having principles and values and standing up for them and holding people accountable is, it's not easy. So a lot of people shy away from that role of being the leader.
And I don't think the boss or the management tell you all those detailed things before you accept the role and the paycheck. It's like buying something secondhand. Buyer beware.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the team, there's the door, go lead.
Yeah, right. Have at it. Yeah, exactly.
Challenging. As you've grown into leadership over the years, what did you have to unlearn? Because I think we learn a lot by watching, and we learn a lot unconsciously, and then we learn these strategies of leadership, and it's confronting because we've got to unlearn a lot of things. Hey, that's not what I thought or how it went.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had to unlearn that being a leader is, there's times when you need to self-reflect and be alone and get clarity on your values and beliefs, and finding the courage to stand up for what you believe in. And as I said before, holding people accountable, which is not easy. So again, going back to this idea of being liked versus being respected, I think is important. So I kind of had to unlearn, I guess, the need to be liked. I had to let that go and move on to something more important, I think, is what am I going to stand for? What are my core beliefs and values? And when am I going to make the hard decisions? And if people don't like me because of it, well, that's reality and that happens, That's kind of, I guess, what I had to unlearn.
Mm. You were mentioning self-reflection,
Yeah.
and I think for a lot of people, self-reflection is incredibly hard because sometimes you've got to look in the mirror
Mm,
and you don't like what you see. It's like
right.
after Christmas, you look in the mirror and you don't like the look of the belly. So
Yeah.
you break the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a whole new world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what do people need to reflect on? You know, what do they have
I,
to
I
look at?
think I think the big decisions you make, the core actions you take, the defining moments, what you did, why you did it, was there a better option or approach? Were you true to your values? And even beyond self-reflection, Daniel, I think the idea of being open to feedback from others. To be coachable, you need to be open, and you need to solicit those people you trust and value and ask them, to give you candid feedback on, what do you think? How do you think I handled that meeting or that situation or that issue we had? And be open to their feedback and learn from it. If you don't learn, you don't grow and advance, obviously. So that's important. But reflection and open to coaching, open to feedback, I think those are all important characteristics of a leader.
Mm, mm. Non-leaders, would they self-reflect?
I'm sorry?
Non-leaders, would they
Oh, non-leaders.
self-reflect?
Um, I don't know, maybe some do, but I think, as you pointed out, the discipline of self-reflection is not something everyone does. I think the discipline of saying, once a week, I'm going to reflect on my key decisions, my key actions, and spend time analyzing those. It takes discipline to do that.
Mm,
A lot of people don't want to do it or don't find the time or they let it slide and it never happens. So structuring it, putting it into your routine, I think is a good thing. So like once a week, I'm going to spend 15 minutes thinking about my key decisions that week and kind of critique them and analyze them and blah, blah, blah.
mm. I had grown up on the water. I know you're
Yeah.
close to the water, and
Yeah.
we used to go down to the river and we would water ski, we would wakeboard, and the passion turned into a competitive nature. And my
Yep.
brother and I started to compete. And a big component of our routine was to train and would go out on the water and we would then film ourselves ride. And
Hmm.
after the 2 or 3 hours of training was complete, would come home and would sit down and we would analyze what we'd done on the water. And I noticed that we would do this, but nobody else would.
Mm.
We would film other people, but other people didn't want to watch back the replay. And
Hmm.
we would sit there and we would study it. Okay,
Hmm.
what did I do right?
Hmm.
And how did I do that trick? And how can I do it again next time? And now how can I do it bigger and better and
Yep.
get a bigger round of applause next time I do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would do that as part of the routine. And
Yeah.
very quickly, my brother and I were both state champion athletes. We
Mm.
were then Australian champion athletes. And then we
Hmm.
went to the X Games.
Mm.
And we just thought that was totally normal thing to do.
Mm. Mm.
Go
Mm.
ride, reflect,
Mm.
ride,
Mm.
reflect. And
Mm.
then we got a result. It's kind of like 3 hours. Ride,
Mm.
reflect, results, repeat. Maybe
Mm.
it's 4 hours.
Mm.
And we just
Mm.
kept doing that for 15 or 20 years. And we
Hmm.
would talk to other people and we'd ask them, do you film yourself? Do you review the tapes? And it was such a
Hmm.
foreign concept. And I think for people who might not have been in sports, to reflect on their performance might seem like a bizarre thing to do. Like, why
Yeah.
would you think about your mistakes? Why
Yeah.
would you think about what you did last week?
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, I think the videotaping performance is such a great learning tool. When I coached hockey a number of years back, and one of the things we did is we videotaped the practices and the games, and afterwards we would play it with the athletes in the audience and would critique, what happened here and what were you thinking and why'd you do this and that. And it was such a great learning tool. When I was a college teacher, we used to videotape the students making presentations. And then they had to observe themselves and critique what they did well, what they could improve on, that type of thing. So I think that is a great, great, great tool to use and to reflect on and to benefit, because you actually see yourself, live in that situation, and you're seeing what you did and what you could have done differently. And it's a great way to learn. So I love
Mm.
that. I'm a big believer in that.
Mm. What about the use of things like instant feedback and delayed feedback for leaders? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's very hard to reflect on your own performance. And
Yeah.
sometimes you get feedback in the moment, like on a sales call. No, we're not buying your product. Oh,
Yeah.
but that might only be a small part of a bigger problem. How do you use feedback with leaders?
Well, oftentimes you have the direct reports or some number of people do an evaluation of the leader's skills and approaches and what have you. And then you use that as a discussion point to discuss what they do well and where they need to improve based on what their direct reports say. Now, of course, leaders often have different views of how effective or ineffective they are in different ways. Um, I find it hard if I'm observing a leader doing something. You can identify some points very quickly, maybe that might be good feedback for them. But going back to the videotape, if you videotape them and can study that videotape and look at it from multiple different angles and points of view, you can maybe come up with more in-depthful insights of what they could do differently and improve and that type of thing. So immediate feedback doesn't always capture maybe the more subtle or, I don't know, impactful things that they could do. I like, if you have the opportunity to think about it, reflect on it, study the video, I think that makes it even more effective.
Mm. In my mind, I think with immediate feedback, if somebody's watching, we tend to be on our best behavior.
Yeah.
We follow all the standard operating procedures. We say all the right things. We smile.
Yeah.
We're compliant. And then when that person goes away, we go back to our old habits. And something like this happened to me when I was an athlete. My brother said to me, he said, Daniel, he said, if the camera's on or if the crowd's there at a competition, you'll do your biggest and best tricks. You'll even go out on the water and you'll do tricks that you've never done before, and you'll land it the first time because the camera's on and the crowd's there. And I'd never thought of it. And he said, why don't you just do that all the time? He said, you become a lot better rider. He said, obviously you can do this stuff, but you wait till the lights are on, the cameras are on, the crowds are there, and you do it and you blow people away, but you never do it when you ride socially.
Yeah.
He said, if you rode socially like you did when you compete, you'd get further ahead. And it was a profound piece of feedback that I took on, and I thought to myself, that's right. That's right. If I did do that when I was training and then I got to the competition, maybe I can go an extra 10 or 20% further or higher or more.
Yeah.
And it was something that I hadn't considered until somebody mentioned it to me. But it was something that was over time. It was both in the moment, but also this person, my brother, because he'd been riding with me 15 years, he'd collected all of that data over the years, and he put the dots together for me and then presented it in the form of feedback.
Yeah.
That was profound.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do we get enough time with our leaders to be able to do that? Because I think it wouldn't be crazy to think that business owners might want to exit their business. Wouldn't be crazy to think that they want to have a succession plan or grow. And I don't think it'd be crazy to think that most business owners don't have the time to just
Mm-hmm.
watch their future leaders. How do we go about that? How do we get that result of watching them long term without the business owner necessarily doing the watching?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of making it a priority. You know, the workflow, work demands, the number of things that a senior leader needs to deal with day in and day out is pretty immense. Finding the time to observe your high potential and some of your other leaders and taking the time to give them feedback and that type of thing, coaching them, um, comes down to a matter of fitting it into your schedule. Some leaders, I think, do a good job of that and they make it a priority. I worked for a leader that did that, but I also worked for a number of leaders that, really didn't do that. They just were into their own thing and more concerned with their own metrics and goals and how the division was going to do or the profit center was going to do. So they didn't spend a lot of time coaching and giving feedback and developing the next group of leaders. Um, so I think making it a priority certainly is important. And it's so important that you develop and grow future leaders so you do have a succession plan. You know, I fortunately worked for a company that had a pretty good succession approach. We would meet once or twice a year and we would discuss a lot of the different key positions, a lot of the high potential employees, and we would have a very candid, open discussion about where this person needed to move next, what job or what role did they need to broaden their background. And we moved people around into different profit centers, different functions, and we had training programs, and we sent some people off to like MIT has a Sloan management program that's a very prestigious program. It's a year-long thing. We sent some people to that, and it's a big commitment. I mean, it's like $100,000 to send someone to one of these programs. So it's a huge financial commitment, but it shows that you're fully invested in developing this person and you want them to get the absolute best exposure, training, guidance, feedback that they can get. So
Mm,
some companies do a really good job of it and some could do a lot better, I think.
mm. One complaint that I hear from friends and talking to people in business, they say, Daniel, we get coaching and our leader, he schedules it into his diary.
Yeah.
And then comes to the day we have coaching and there's something else more important. He's got to go
Mhm.
talk to a customer or put out a fire
Mhm. Yeah.
and we don't get our one-to-one.
Mhm.
And then we get to the end of the year and we do our 360 review. And we do a
Mhm.
360 and we make all these new promises and commitments and then nobody follows us up.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I have
Yeah.
heard this on repeat over and over and
Mhm.
again that these team members have these same complaints.
Mhm.
With a culture like that, how does that impact the team members when that's the culture of a business?
Well, I also think that each of us need to take on our own development. I can't, as a leader, I can't rely on my boss to be the one that's going to develop me. I need to own my career. I need to own my development. So I need to think about what can I do? There's programs I can attend, there's videos on YouTube, there's all sorts of TED Talks, there's books that are great that can give me some new insights. There's colleagues that I can work with maybe and share best practices and what they do in this situation. So I can't rely on someone else that's going to develop me. I got to develop myself. I got to figure out what do I need to do to become the leader that I want to be,
Mm,
So I'm big on that you own your career, you own your leadership style, you own your leadership skills. So work at developing those in whatever ways work best for you, you know?
mm,
You said you spent a lot of time with your brother and he would give you feedback and, you talk about different moves you were doing and stuff like that. Same idea in the business world. You can have a colleague that can give you feedback and you can have discussions with, and, how do you give feedback to your employees, or how do you set goals, or how do you deal with angry customers, on and on and on. There's lots of things to be learned from the people that do it well in the organization. So I think that's a way to go.
mm, mm. You've authored 31 books. You've been training people, 40,000 of them. You've been doing this for
Mhm.
41 years.
Mm.
What's changing in leadership?
Well, it's a good question. Certainly AI is changing a lot of things, but I think the leader still needs to do the things they've been doing for a long time, like creating a vision, inspiring people, getting people aligned around a common mission, vision, values, dealing with conflict, building effective teams. So a lot of those things are still very, very much there. I think, of course, the rate of change is increasing, and AI is giving us the ability to get information so quickly. That's accelerating everything. And I think so the leader needs to be adaptable and able to read the situations more quickly and understand what does this situation need or this person need? What can I do to add value here? How can I help the team move forward? That type of thing. So the speed is quickening, and the need to be adaptable and look at it from multiple points of view, I think, is also becoming more and more important.
Mm. It does feel like there's a level of change fatigue
Yeah.
around a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
And it seems to be in conversations that I'm having is that people have foregone their goals just
Yeah.
to get through the week. And they say, you wouldn't believe how fast things change around here.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks ago, the market was pumping and now it's dead. And
Yeah.
then something else will take off.
Yeah.
And people are adapting, they're adjusting, they're
Hmm.
responding, but they're tired,
Hmm.
they're fatigued, they're
Mm.
worried about change.
Mm. Mm.
I'm hearing this in conversations nonstop. And you mentioned here is, the rate of change.
Mm.
In the businesses that you're working in, what's an example of this rate of change? What do you see?
Um, well, a customer, this goes back a couple of years, but it still makes the point, I think. A customer, I worked at an aerospace company for a while, and Boeing was one of our customers, or major airplane manufacturer. And they would send in an order for, let's say, an engine control, a new one, brand new one for a new plane. And normally it would take us 3 years to make a new engine control, to test it out and do all of the work and design and all that and testing that had to be done. So 3 years. So the customer would say, no, no, we want it in 6 months, you know? And so going from a 3 year, approach or plan that you currently used and saying, no, we need it in 6 months. So that type of dramatic increase or challenge forced our engineers to rethink everything they did. How can we cut cycle time? How can we reinvent this? We need a different process to do it that quickly. So in some cases, customers are saying we want it more quickly, or we want more features on it, or we want something different. And that's forcing the company to come up with new approaches and processes to get it done. Yeah, the demand for instant answers too. The customer sends in a proposal, they want an answer that day, and in the past it maybe took 3 days or a week to get all the figures and facts and put it all together. So things like that are happening, and putting a lot of pressure on people and companies to figure out what can we cut, how do we streamline it, how do we integrate AI into our processes to make it work faster. I think that's happening a lot these days.
There was a really good movie a few years ago with Keanu Reeves called Need for Speed. And I'm seeing today that customers have this need for speed.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is last week I was having a dinner with a business owner, and he said that this year his sales are down $400,000. And he said at the start of the year, my return on ad spend was 7x. He said it's now at 0.2x return on ad spend. He said, I can get people on a call, but I can't make a sale because they have no access to money. He said, I sell educational products. People don't want to learn. He said, but they want what you said, instant answers. And he said, so I have to reinvent my business because people don't want to learn. They want to be seen as learning, but they don't want to learn. They just want the instant answer. That was the first conversation I had. 6 months before that, I had a conversation with a friend of mine in Singapore, Dr. Raman Kayatri. And Dr. Raman said that there's big organizations in Australia who are removing their learning and development departments out of the business. They don't have any operations manuals. They don't have any training systems. And their expectation is what you said, instant answers. We don't want to have to train our people anymore. We don't want to have to get them off site for a day or a week. We just want to move the cursor around the screen and for the answer to pop up. And that's what I'm seeing. And I think the word that you said there just summarized it all. Instant answers. It's this need for speed.
Well, a couple nights ago, I ordered something from Amazon at 8 o'clock at night. It was at my doorstep at 5 a.m. that morning. So they processed the order and had it delivered within like 4 or 5 hours. And that's a common performance of Amazon these days, where I am anyway. And it's incredible, In the old days, you would have gotten in your car, driven to the store and bought it. This is something I would buy at my grocery store, for example. But it's just incredible what they're capable or what they're actually doing.
I remember reading this magazine called Mad Magazine back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to buy something out of the magazine, you'd send a coupon in the mail back to the magazine company, and maybe in about 6 to 9 months, you'd get your product. And that felt fast. But in comparison to today's world, who would think that you'd have to wait 9 months for something? Like, what's wrong with these people? Are they doing drugs?
Exactly. I know. It's a whole different world.
I wanted to buy some playing cards, and I was going through our equivalent to Amazon here in Taiwan, And I found a pack and I ordered it and it was a good price. Well, let's call it $10 US. And they said it was going to be 5 days delivery. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what the is 5 days? It's $10. It's a pack of cards. It should be here immediately. And that instant gratification was triggered to me. I want it now. And then I had to look through a couple of other pages and they had the same cards there for $20, but I could get it today. And here I am ordering a set of cards that I don't need. That's twice the cost just because I can have the convenience of now. And I'm justifying to my wife. She's like, do you really need those cards? I'm like, well, they're going to deliver it straight away.
Right.
And you don't have to see me angry for 5 days pacing around and looking in the letterbox. You get a happy husband.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And if that's happening so fast, 8 p.m. and it's on your doorstep at 5 a.m. in the morning, obviously there's a lot of people and steps involved, but to be able to transform your process to be able to do that because of the customer's wants and needs, that's got to be fatiguing on a team for sure.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Wild. Over the past 40 years, what stayed the same? What hasn't changed? And what do you believe won't change with leadership?
Well, one of my big ideas, Daniel, is that I think leaders use 3 basic styles to get things done. They either direct, discuss, or delegate. I call this the 3 Ds. And I think leaders have been using these 3 styles for forever. And I think they use these 3 styles to set goals, to develop plans, make decisions, give feedback, coach people, etc. And when they direct, they're telling the person what to do, how to do it, when to have it done by, that type of thing. There's times when all of us need direction. If you've never done a particular task or have no idea what to do, you want and need direction. But as we grow and develop, we want to be involved. We want to give our ideas. We want to discuss things. So the discussing style is appropriate with a person who's got some experience and they want to share and give their input. So the leader asks good questions about what would you do here? What do you think the goal should be? How would you proceed in this situation? And when you use the discussing style, the person is learning to think, because you're asking them questions and they got to respond, formulate their ideas, present their ideas. They're learning to collaborate, build on the ideas of others if you're working in a group setting. And then the third one is delegating. When you delegate, you're empowering them to take ownership and to do it. Now, if a person's done something 28 times, they don't need direction. They need to be empowered because they have the knowledge and skills and they know what to do. Now, when you use the delegating style, people learn to work independently. They learn to set priorities, negotiate, work through obstacles, get the job done. Going back to directing, I didn't mention that when you're using a directing style, people learn to listen. They learn to ask questions if they don't understand some of the directions. They learn to take action and get the thing done by the deadline that you gave them. So my point is that leaders should use the appropriate style for the situation and the person involved. And if they do, the person learns some important skills and knowledge, and they gain confidence, and they become more and more capable and more confident to move forward. And eventually they become very independent and capable, and you can delegate more and more and more to them. That frees up your time and allows you to do other things, strategic planning and alignment and, those types of things, looking at the whole organization, how it's functioning. So it sounds easy, right? I mean, 3 styles, no big deal. But you and I both know that some leaders have a preferred style like directing, and they use directing all the time. So they become the micromanager. The employee's done the task, they know what to do, but yet the manager is still telling them, or leader telling them what to do and how to do it and all that. And the person's getting demotivated and frustrated and upset. With discussion, you and I I'm sure, have been in those meetings where the discussions go on and on and on and on. One thing with discussion, after you have a discussion, at some point you got to make a decision, right? The leader needs to say, okay, great discussion, a lot of good points. I'm now going to make the decision, or let's together make the decision. But you got to move at some point from discussion to decision. And some leaders don't do that. And then with delegating, we tend to over delegate to the people that are really top performers. So we give them more and more and more to do, and we overwhelm them and they get burnt out, and that's not good. And we under delegate to other people, and we never learn what really they're capable of doing. So finding the right spot, or applying it the right way, I guess I should say, is important for each style. And again, going back to reflection, I'm a big believer. At the end of the week, the leader needs to think about, I use this style in this situation. Was that the most appropriate style? Or should I have maybe asked more questions, or should I have moved to delegating? That's important. And learning when, or using the most appropriate style, is going to be the most impactful and beneficial for the employee, and for getting the task done on time and meeting the standards and specs that you have. So I think that's a biggie. I think that's something, as I said, I think leaders have been using those 3 styles forever. I see a lot of things online that talk about there's 9 styles and there's 12 styles. And, I don't buy that. I think it's pretty simple, but again, challenging to apply in a consistent way, and using the most effective style in each situation is still critically important. It's like raising kids. I don't know if you have children, but early in life, the parent is a little bit more directing. You tell the kid what to wear and when we're going to eat and where we're going to go and what the rules are and all that.
Who
But
you're
as
going
they
to
get a
date,
little bit
who
older,
you're
you
not allowed
start
to
to
go out with.
discuss. Yeah, right. You start to discuss, what would you do in this situation? And what do you think's most important here? And what are your values? And, all of that. And then as they get older, late teens, it's more delegating. You make the decision. You decide where you're going to go. You decide what you're going to do, and this type of stuff. So it's kind of analogous to that, I guess. But anyway, that's one thing I think that has stayed consistent or stayed the same for what leaders need to do to be effective. Maybe I'd add, though, they need to be more adaptable, as we talked about before. They need to be more adaptable today, because as things change so quickly, you may need to move from a delegating style to a directing style, because the world has changed in some way, and you need to be clearer on what's expected and what the rules are, and blah blah blah.
Would it be wild for me to think that the discussion style of leadership would be ineffective when the building's burning down?
Yes. In emergencies of any kind, discussion is not going to do it. If the person is drowning, they don't need a discussion on how to swim, right? You're right. If the building's burning down, you can't bring the group together and say, let's collaborate on what approaches we can use to put out the fire. Exactly.
I was in aviation, and as part of being in aviation, we had to learn safety and security measures. And when it came to a fire on the aircraft, we had moments to put that out before an entire aircraft could catch on fire. And they said to you, don't ask for people's opinions. Don't ask them permission. Scream and shout and direct.
Yeah.
So we would do these emergency drills, and we would get everybody off the aircraft. Open seatbelts. Leave everything. Go that way.
Yeah.
And they would say, louder, yell it, get up in their face.
Yep.
And there was no time for a discussion.
Yep.
You have to get off the aircraft or you're dead.
That's a good point, Daniel, that in a crisis, you also want short, direct, clear statements. You know, your instructions can't be 8 sentences long to tell them what to do. Very succinct, to the point, do it. Yeah. Good example.
The mind, from what I've learned, is with communication, the mind can handle probably about 7 or 8 chunks of information at a time, 7 or 8 words in a sentence. And when it comes to an emergency situation where your amygdala's been hijacked, you go back to the primal level. Stop!
Yeah.
Single words.
Yep.
Body language, facial expressions.
Yep.
Because they seem to be the same in every language. People say to me, they say, oh, Daniel, how long have you lived in Taiwan? And I'd say 14 years. They go, do you speak the language? I said, no, I don't speak the language. And they said, well, how do you live there? And I said, I have money. I said, and money speaks all language. So if I want something and they see the money, everybody helps. And they're like, oh, but the money. I said, are you a pet owner? Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? And they say, yes. I said, do you love your dog? Do you love your cat? Yes. And how long has that cat or dog been with you? 10 years. Okay, good. And how many words has it spoken to you? None. Yeah, and that's like me in Taiwan. I don't need to speak the language, but I've been living here for 14 years. What about direction? I think what I felt when you were sharing that style is I've had situations in my life where I've experienced direction fatigue. I consider myself a high performer in some roles, and when people have to re-explain the role to me 38 times, and I'm the best person on the team, and you're still telling me how to do it because you're the leader, I'm exhausted. I got to listen to you explain this to me, and I can do it better than you, and you're saying it's your job to tell me. I'm tired. That's got to be exhausting for people.
I think exhausting, frustrating, annoying, demotivating. Yeah, all of those things I think apply. The person, as you said, you know, they know what to do, or they know what the rule is, or they know how to proceed. They don't need direction. They just need to be told, get it done, you know? But some managers, some leaders think their job is to tell people, to be in the directing mode, you know? Yeah. And they do way too much of that. And the sad thing is that any manager or leader, you never want to do things that are going to demotivate your employees. So when you start doing that, you're, you know, really having a negative impact. I mean, I've always believed leaders should be helping people perform at a higher level. And when you over direct, you're demotivating them, so they're frustrated and performing at a lower level, you know? So not good.
I love in business when we hear about get back to basics. And I think that's a wonderful thing to get back to basics. But as an athlete, if you want to take me back to the basics all the time and you're trying to reteach and train me and coach me on things that I was doing 15 years ago, you've misread the play. Because my get back to basics after 15 years on the water is very different to the other person's get back to basics.
Yeah.
And I believe with leaders, what you were saying early on is leaders have to be able to self-reflect. And in emotional intelligence, we call that self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And the flip side of self-awareness is social awareness. And that's being able to look at the people that you're leading
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
knowing what style of leadership do they need, which are the 3 Ds.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what I can see, that person doesn't need direction. They've got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right now, that person doesn't need to have a discussion.
Yeah.
Right now, they need to be delegated a role that's in
Mm-hmm.
alignment with their current skill set.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes social awareness. It
Mm.
takes the leader,
Yeah.
obviously, to know themselves and then to
Mm-hmm.
know others.
Yeah. One of the things I talk about in my new book that's coming out in July is the importance of being able to diagnose the situation, read the room, to be able to look at what's happening and sense what does this team or group or situation need? How can I be helpful? Do they need direction? Do they need to be more engaged? Do they need to be empowered? What does their body language indicate? What messages are you hearing from them? So yeah, to be able to read the situation is so important. And as we talked about several times, the rate of change is increasing, so you need to be adaptable. And part of being adaptable is reading the room so you can adapt and use the right style or approach to add value. Um, some leaders I find are good at diagnosing, and others, I don't know, they're too inwardly focused and not really outwardly focused and understanding what's happening in their environment. Social awareness, as you said, it's an
Mm,
important skill.
mm. You're mentioning here diagnosis. This is something that doctors do. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of us who are at least somewhere between your age and my age have probably heard that an accurate diagnosis is half the cure.
right,
So to
right.
think of a doctor who can have a leader who can have an effective diagnosis, that's got to be a much better leadership style.
Yeah, right. And I find with the doctor metaphor or analogy, I find, a lot of doctors have a specialty and they're good at diagnosing within their specialty. They look at everything through that lens and they might miss the interconnections. The body is a very complex system that has a lot of parts and pieces that need to work together and what have you. Just like an organization or team, there's a lot of pieces and parts that need to be aligned and coordinated and integrated. And some leaders have one lens they kind of look through, we hitting our goals, the financials maybe, versus others have a broader view or multiple lenses that they look at in terms of what's going on, how can I get a good feel or sense of what's really happening right now, including, like we said, body language and people's emotional energy and enthusiasm in the room and um, tone of voice and all those subtle things that are important for getting a good sense of where is this team or individual at and what can I do to help them move forward. So yeah,
Mm.
I think that's very important. And the medical analogy I think is important. If you screw up the diagnosis, your prescription is not going to make sense, right?
Doctors, they do 3 things. They do an examination,
Mm-hmm.
they do a diagnosis, and then they offer a prescription. And what's known as medical mispractice or malpractice is when a doctor gives a prescription before a diagnosis. And I
Right.
think that's what a lot of leaders tend to do. And it's not always
Mm-hmm.
their fault. It can be because of a lack of training or education. But they're out delegating the wrong tasks to the wrong people at the wrong
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and everything screws up. And that's malpractice. because they forgave the examination and they didn't get the data. They didn't do the diagnosis effectively.
Right. Yeah, I think sometimes they need to think about what data, as a leader, what data do I need? What viewpoints do I need to hear? Am I understanding how the customer views the situation, how the employees view it, maybe how senior management views it? So am I getting the data points that I need to make a good diagnosis of really what's happening, what the challenge is, and what needs to be done to, hit the goal. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very
Mm.
important.
Mm. One area I see for leaders where they make a lot of mistakes is when it comes to hiring. And the problem with hiring is that they let their own bias get in the way. So they meet a potential candidate. They fall in love with the candidate because we
Mhm.
have the same hockey team. We live on the same
Mhm.
lake. We went to the same
Yep.
school. And
Yep.
all logic goes out the window. And
Yep.
they say that about 5% of those hiring biases, that leaders will make a hiring decision within 60 seconds of meeting somebody,
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
5% of hires.
Mm.
And I think about this, I think you've built your company, you've been operating for 30 or 40 years, you've made it through every economic downturn, and you're
Mhm.
still moving forward. And now
Mhm.
you're going to hire somebody based on your own opinion, receive
Mhm.
no other feedback, and then you're going to pay this person $100,000. And if you get it wrong, it's going to cost you $500,000 to
Mm.
$700,000. Are you
Yep.
crazy?
Yeah.
And that's where they
Yeah.
miss the data. And
Yeah.
being emotionally aware there for leaders is you've got to be so mindful of your own bias. For me,
Mhm.
I'm a
Mm.
people pleaser. I want everybody to have the job.
Mm.
I want everybody
Mm.
to have the job.
Mm. Mm.
I'm a coach. I believe
Mhm.
everybody can win. I believe everybody can succeed. And I
Mhm.
know that those biases, if they get into the way of the hiring process, I'm ineffective. So I
Mm.
say to my teams, I don't want to meet the people. I don't want to know
Mhm.
anything about the people. I don't want to fall in
Mhm.
love with them.
Mhm.
I just want to use data. I just
Mhm.
want to have a look at all the facts and make
Mhm.
my decision based on what I can see with data.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in the other part of it. And
Mhm.
as I've shown leaders how to do that, they say that is much more effective. We can have a look at
Mhm.
different personality types, different types of motivators, how people
Mhm.
make decisions. And we can
Mhm.
have a look at the data before
Mhm.
we fall in love with the person.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that is a major problem for me
Mhm.
and
Mm.
for a lot of other people that I meet as well.
Another problem, Daniel, that I think happens with hiring is the leader doesn't take the time to think about what are the new challenges that this person in this position is going to face, and getting clear on those, and then thinking about what skill set would this person need to be most effective to, deal with those challenges. I think that's really something that gets overlooked. A lot of leaders think about the position as it's existed for the last 10 years and kind of, go along that road. And the world, as we said, is changing quickly. So every job is changing quickly and there's new challenges to every job. So getting clear on that is important. But I
Mm,
like your point, data, getting the right data to help you make the most proper decision is important. I always recommended too that you have multiple people do interviews. Um, we used to have, when we had engineers coming in for interviews, we'd have 4 or 5 people interview them, and we might say to one person interviewing them, we want you to focus on this person's leadership skills. We want you to concentrate on that. And at the end of the day, we're going to get together and we want you to comment on what their strengths are as a leader and what they might do to improve as a leader. We'd have another person take the applicant to lunch and to assess how are they socially, how are they with small talk, how are they with telling stories, that type of thing. So we had at the end of the day, we had data, because sometimes they would give them problems, a technical problem, and say, what would you do in this situation? So you got a chance to see how they would think about a typical engineering type problem. So that was one data point, but also these other aspects that were important for the job. As I said, we had them focusing on one thing during their interview to really hone in on and get a clear view of what their strengths are and what maybe they need to improve on. So anyway.
I'm having a laugh internally and making some notes.
Yeah.
I was in aviation
Yeah.
and I was cabin crew, and I was trained and I was licensed, and I have a passion for aviation. And knowing what I know about aviation, knowing my ability to study, knowing my ability to invest in myself, and being willing to be an expatriate, I'd be a very good candidate externally for a pilot. But if you ran me through some assessments, these assessments would tell you a very different style.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel is not detail oriented. Daniel will not follow systems. Daniel is high risk.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel is intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
and he won't follow your rules and systems. And I look at that and I say, I only know that about myself because I've had so many profiles done on me. And if somebody said, Daniel, we'll offer you a job with an airline to be a pilot, I'd be the first to say, don't let me fly. I'll take off too fast, I'll land too slow, and if I don't like the place I'm flying to, I'll divert the aircraft and I'll go to an airport of my choice. Maybe Vegas, where there's alcohol, gambling, and strippers. I don't know, but I won't follow your rules.
A lot of value in knowing yourself very accurately and precisely. Yeah.
It's also liberating, isn't it? Because in my world, before I was self-aware, I would probably do things to keep other people happy. Oh, mum and dad would like me to do that. Well, I better keep them happy. Friends and family said I'd be good at this. Well, I don't want to let them down. I better keep them happy. And then I started to learn about some of my traits. The biggest one for me was that I tend to be a people pleaser. And I tend to be, not all the time, but a lot of time. And I want to keep people happy. And so what I do now is I tell people, I say, look, I'm a people pleaser, and I'm going to tell you yes just to keep you happy. So let me ask you, do you want me to keep you happy, or do you want me to tell you the truth? Because if you put me in the position to be a people pleaser, I'm going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And I go, you're a people pleaser? And say, you want a yes? Because I'll tell it to you now, and then I'll cancel the sale later on. I go, I would rather know now. Thanks, because it's cheaper to do it this way than for me to cancel the credit card payment later on.
Yeah, good story.
And as a people-pleasing husband, I say to my wife, I'm a people pleaser, and I'm going to say all the right things to keep you happy. But look out later on. And she's a dominating wife. And I say, wife, you're a dominating wife. You want me to say yes. You want everything to be done your way. And if you don't get it done your way, you're going to be really angry, correct? So I value in knowing others too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Very true. Very true.
Your new book, it's coming out in July. And just out of curiosity, obviously authors write books because they're passionate about this topic. And I believe that all authors probably have their own favorite part of their books. So when your book comes out, what's the favorite part of your book? What do you love most about it?
I'm a big fan of simplicity and having a model or visual that integrates or highlights the point or points I'm trying to make. So my new book is called the 3D, and it goes back to the 3 styles we talked about, 3D Adaptive Leadership Model. The book highlights a little bit stronger than what my previous books talked about, diagnosing the situation, and also, as we talked about today, the need to be adaptable. But I think the visual that I have is, again, very simple and clear. So I think that is one thing I hope that stands out, and something that is attractive to the reader. But I also have a number of case studies in the book that I show them how they could use each of the three styles dealing with a particular situation, and how one style might be better or worse than the other. And I talk about, analyzing the situation to assess what style would have been most effective and why. So I think it's a good book if anyone's interested in getting more insights into the three styles and using them and analyzing and being adaptable. I think it's a good book for that purpose. Well, that's kind of a long answer, but anyway, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it sounds to me in my mind it's simple ideas that are easy to apply. And if you're very pragmatic, if you're a fingertip feel type of person, boots on the ground type of person, it's going to be perfect for you.
Yeah, I would agree. I would hope so. Yeah. Yep.
Well, with those 3Ds, I know it already because I have experienced all of those in my careers. And when I was trained to be a leader, my leaders also talked about these particular leadership approaches. And I was working on an airline. I had to lead 17 people that I didn't know. I was given 17 new crew every day. And I also had 400 customers to lead. And it was up to the leaders on the aircraft to make that happen. And we were given a very simple job. Here's 400 people, 17 people, 17 crew, and a $500 million aircraft. Get it from Dubai to Boston in one piece and keep everybody happy. There was no fluff in that, and we had to get it done. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. And where can our listeners get a copy of your book?
All of my books are available on Amazon. So as you said, I've written a number of them, but they're all available on Amazon. The leadership styles one is important. I also wrote one on alignment, which I think is a worthwhile read. Alignment is very important in organizations. And I wrote one recently, What Would You Do in This Situation? And it goes into a number of situations. It focuses on decision making and analyzing the situation and determining, what the best option is. So it's kind of an interesting book. So anyway, they're on Amazon, and I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to post something there, maybe daily, but several times a week anyway. So if you want to hear any more of my ideas, you can check that out. So, and thank you, Daniel, for having me on.
My pleasure. And if it's on Amazon, you can order it at 8 o'clock tonight, and you might just get a surprise when you walk outside and it's there at 5 a.m. in the morning.
You might.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.